If there's anything I could glean from my lifetime experience as a gamer, it's that substance beats style any day of the week. Games with complexity, deep mechanics, or uber challenging experiences that demand every ounce of your gamer fiber will undoubtedly overshadow every single movie game or walking simulator in your library, at least in terms of playtime. Shmups, shoot 'em ups for short. It's one of the genres I try to avoid talking about on account of the fact that I'm utter dogshit at them, and down that same vein, I fear getting ridiculed by shmup god gamers. And I really shouldn't, because shmup enjoyers seem pretty chill and down to earth compared to other fan bases. I can't really describe shmups as easily or as eloquently as those more experienced in the genre because I am unfamiliar with the genre and just too low IQ in general to articulate myself all that well, so please forgive me in advance. But this genre really is what it's cracked out to be by people passionate about the shmup gospel. In many ways, shmups are the peak, the apex, the pinnacle of classic arcade game design, and even game design in general. In my own stupid, smooth-brained terms, shmups are the most pure tests of the most basic foundational video game skills and knowledge, distilled into short, almost bite-sized lengths. If you're really looking to take a spot in the leaderboards, or if you're just going for a 1cc, shmups demand from the player an incredible amount of technical and mechanical skill, and knowledge of that specific game, which includes memorization of enemy spawn placement, movement and bullet patterns like they were the back of your hand, and a Mariana's Trench-deep level of understanding of your own toolkit, spatial awareness, and how you maneuver your hitbox on the screen. Not only that, but shmups, especially the classic ones, tend to be extremely lean and trimmed of fluff, padding, or extraneous mechanics. Story and cutscenes, if any, are super short and to the point, or delegated to the title screen, ending sequence, or something else. The pacing in these games are almost non-stop action, with very few breaks or downtime between each encounter. And combat is very simple, as shooting only requires the holding down of a single button or a combination of a couple at most. In other words, compared to most modern games releasing today, shmups are as close as it gets to pristine, unadulterated video game heroin. In the highest level of play, bullet hells can look like the most intimidating, unintuitive meat grinder BDSM sessions ever put into an interactive medium like video games. And while that's not exactly false, it's not completely true either. It might look like top tier players are simply reacting to bullet hell on skill alone, merely going from encounter to encounter with the goal of surviving, finding little pockets of safety in between seas of hurt boxes. But you might be surprised to find that that really isn't the case. Of course, I have no doubt that some of these players are actual crazy people and have inhuman fucking reflexes granting them the ability to breeze past encounters on reaction alone. But I'm willing to bet that most players who demonstrate 1cc's and super high scores have gotten there through trial and error, dying again and again, experimenting, memorizing, and routing, leading up to the ultimate playthrough, where they perform everything they've practiced up to that point flawlessly out of their goddamn minds. That's how we get most of these insane videos and high scores. And if you're thinking that this process seems familiar, it's probably because you've done it before in other games. Many modern games feature vestiges of this classic game design, but in a more diluted, digestible manner. So to soothe my pathetic crybaby ego, I set out to prove to myself that I could be one of these god gamers. I picked up a relatively simple looking shmup, Altenex 2nd, and started grinding out a 1cc. After about a week of routing and memorizing and getting embarrassingly tilted, just by the skin of my teeth, I finally got my 1cc. On easy mode. Even though it was just easy mode, the culmination of all my practice and hardship led to an exhilarating and adrenaline-inducing moment. And I'm very happy and very proud I experienced it. I'd even add it to the bottom shelf of my collection of gaming achievements, right under my other no-death clears in games with permadeath hard modes. And the fact that I even had this much trouble on fucking easy mode speaks volumes about the skill it takes to ace these games. And as a result, I have the utmost respect to any madman who has put in the time and dedication to really mastering these types of games on the hardest difficulties. Aside from gloating about my mildly impressive achievement, and calling it impressive is generous, there's another reason why I brought up the topic of shmups. And I'm sorry in advance to any shmup enjoyers, I just don't really like them that much. and I don't really know why. On paper and even in reality, shmups, the good ones, are the epitome of fundamental game design. I even have enough first-hand experience to tell you that this is in fact true. So as an enjoyer of deep or meaningful game design, which shmups have both of, I should too be an enjoyer of this genre. But that just isn't the case for some reason. In total, I've only really played a handful of these types of games, mostly as a dumb kid. Especially that one Bloons game you could find on some shady malware-ridden flash game websites ending in .ru. Although I hold them to the utmost regard and they've definitely clicked with me, they've just never really resonated with me at any point in my life. If I asked myself the question, what games do resonate with me, I would probably say first-person or third-person shooters, or games with cameras closely attached to the player character's body in general. Even shitty movie games or walking simulators with gameplay systems as shallow as puddles appeal to me. I like playing these games. Something about controlling a character from an up-close and personal perspective, pointing to and clicking on heads really appeals to my personal tastes and sensibilities. Really rings my bell. And hypothetically, if there were a simultaneous release on the same day of the newest shmup made by whoever the most reputable shmup dev is, or the newest open-world movie game made by Rockstar, chances are my consumer brain would automatically consider the Rockstar game higher on the priority list. In retrospect, it seems rather weird or pointless of me to bring up shmups for the sole purpose of bragging about my lame 1cc and talking about my lukewarm interest in them. That's because there's one more reason I brought up the topic of shmups. That reason is surface appeal. One day after work, I wanted to play something different from what I normally do, and nothing in my Steam library appealed to me at that moment. That's when I came across one of Jamer's 1cc's in a game called Devil Blade Reboot. And although I highly respect this man's inhuman, godlike skill in every fucking game he uploads videos on, it wasn't his insane gameplay that made me want to buy it. It was when I saw this moment at the 1 minute 40 second mark. Something about the gritty graphics and presentation in this cutscene appealed to my stupid inner 10-year-old sensibilities, which I've never grown out of, and made me go, yeah, this game looks fucking sick. And apparently, this game was developed by someone named Shigetake, who is associated with Vanillaware, so it should come as no surprise that the game looks this good. I bought the game, and after having experienced it firsthand, I love the visuals, the set pieces, and the fucking stupid, insane hype anime moments within it even more. I liked it so much that I ended up 1cc'ing it on normal mode, only because of the recharging shield mechanic, and beat it on hard mode, only because you can grind out credits. And afterwards, I had an itch to play one more shmup, which is what brought me to an Electric Underground video that recommends a ton of shmups. Skimming through it, I found one shmup that had visuals appealing to me, which was Altonix 2nd, which is what spurred me on to make this video. All of this because I indirectly saw a 5-second long opening cutscene that has absolutely zero bearing on gameplay. After reflecting on this little shmup phase I had, it occurred to me that this wasn't the first time this has happened to me. In fact, I've been experiencing phenomena similar to this my entire life, and not just for video games. Looking back, I have to wonder just how many mannerisms, habits, or phrases I've picked up from peers or elders, just because I saw them do or say something my dumbass thought looked cool. I can name several off the top of my head, some of which I am definitely not proud of. Kids at my elementary school were really into stupid garbage like pogs and rubber bands, despite already being in the late 2000s. I begged my parents to buy me that stuff without knowing just how much of a thrill playing for keeps is. I just thought slamming down pogs on each other and arms covered in rubber bands looked fun. One Piece. I saw the famous Nothing Happened scene on YouTube where Zoro stoically absorbs the accumulated pain of his captain. I got into the shitty anime and then the manga because of it, without knowing just how much of the story is a beautiful, heartwarming, and inspiring story about hope, dreams, and freedom. I just thought Zoro was badass. Berserk. I saw one spread of Mira's truly tapestry-worthy artwork, and then got into the manga because of it, without knowing just how much of the story is an introspective, philosophical, character-driven love triangle masterpiece. I just thought Skull Knight looked fucking cool, and I have no doubt that this has happened to me with countless other products. Movies, books, clothing, food, anything. Not to mention video games. I can think of countless times I went over to a family member's house, saw them play something that utterly mesmerized me, and ended up wanting to play it for myself. It's fun to shit on myself and others with this same consumer mindset, looking at a video game from afar and judging whether or not I want to buy it solely based on its superficial aspects, rather than actually personally experiencing the gameplay, is by all means shallow. But shallow doesn't automatically mean bad. In fact, that kind of initial attraction is how many of us get into games in the first place. It's easy to forget that many gamers, including myself, are exposed to games through trailers, box art, reviews, websites, or other flashy showcases. So many people wouldn't have even thought about trying games if it weren't for that initial spark. And this isn't just a modern invention, it's also easy to forget that surface appeal has always been a part of video games, dating all the way back to the good old arcade days. When not in use, machines at these places often had things called demo modes or attract modes, which showed off a game's gameplay or cinematics in a loop which were designed to catch a potential customer's eye and make them drop a quarter or two. Not to mention the flashy artwork physically attached to the sides or the tops and the bottoms, or the actual form factor of certain machines which were sometimes super rad. We're visual, emotional, and sometimes irrational creatures. If I came across an undeniably stunningly hot goth girl on the street that ticks all of my boxes, and if I looked away and told myself and everyone around me, no, I'm not attracted to her, because that would be shallow, I would be denying myself of my humanity. I'm not some picturesque frozen idol of perfection. I'm a dumbass shit-flinging monkey. We are all stupid shit-flinging monkeys at the end of the day. But at the same time, to reduce ourselves to only being dumbass shit-flinging monkeys is a narrow and even rather insulting perspective of the human spirit. We all want to fuck hot people, and we all want to buy the most trendy, cool-looking products, but what makes us human is the ability to stop and reflect before acting on those behaviors. What's even more human is giving into these urges and then dealing with and reflecting on the aftermath, and to go even further beyond that, to transcend humanity into the ultimate supreme human possible, teetering into the realm of divinity, is to give into base desire, reflect on the aftermath, and then grow and branch past that as a result. As Mr. Skyrim with Guns once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same fucking thing over and over again expecting shit to change. This definition is not an Oxford-sanctioned one, but it's one that sticks in my head, and I think it's a little bit relevant to the topic of this video. I have to wonder just how many millions and millions of gamers around the world buy the same types of surface-level, boring, rehashed, done-before games, or whale out ungodly amounts of money on predatory Coomer Gacha games over and over again, without really thinking critically about what they're consuming. What's more, I have to wonder if those same people would be open to branching out of their comfort zones and try games in different genres or games with more complexity, but they just don't know it because they haven't yet seen something that appeals to their sensibilities. Chances are, it's probably a sizable chunk of gamers, way more than I think. I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to act superior or talk down to anyone in either of these boats. I don't think critically about video games as often or as concisely as those smarter than me. I also was and still am one of those people who stick mostly to what's familiar to me, although I do have bursts of motivation to try something different or deeper than what I'm normally used to, so I can't fault anyone for sticking to what they're comfortable with. Moreover, I'm not saying that no one should play shallow games. There are plenty of shallow games definitely worth experiencing. Naissance is one of them. It's an avant-garde experience, that's for sure, but the gameplay part of it is nothing short of unsubstantial. The puzzle sections suck ass. The sprinting and breathing mechanic is a literal nothing burger since it's so forgiving, and it's in a game about slowing down and soaking in the visuals and atmosphere. There are platforming sections, but first-person platforming always sucks 3 dicks in every game it's in. There isn't even a real story to grasp onto, so if you want to find any semblance of narrative, you gotta be one of those Souls scholars who can make sense of a story based off a couple scraps of information. It sounds like I'm shitting on it, I am. And yet, I don't regret playing it, because the atmosphere is so dark and alien, and the visuals were unlike anything in any other game I've played. It evokes a deep sense of hopelessness, loneliness, and isolation, a feeling I've really only gotten from a couple of the Souls games. And the only reason I even heard of this game is from a Jacob Geller video, where he compares the environment in the game to the environment in Blame, a super dark and esoteric manga. As I've said in a previous video, even the smartest and most talented of us aren't always looking to be challenged. These people are probably part of the silent majority I often forget about. who just don't really have the time or resources to give a shit about or look past the surface of video games or leisure activities in general. People around the world have super busy lives, working their asses off in shitty 9-to-5 jobs or even worse. Growth in their taste of video games would be the least of their worries, if it's even on their list of worries at all. I suppose I should count my lucky stars I was born in a sheltered-ass, easy-ass, life-allowing-ass first-world country. My life is so easy and so free of stress compared to countless others around the world that I have the privilege of dedicating a huge chunk of my free time to playing and thinking about video games of all things. So I completely understand that not everyone wants to deep dive into design theory or spend hours breaking apart a game's inner workings. Most people just want to have fun, unwind, and play something that looks cool or feels familiar. But if you're one of the people I described earlier who feel like you want to branch out of your comfort zone, maybe this video can act as a gentle nudge towards trying something you've never tried before, or playing games on a deeper level you've never gone that deep into. Things might just click or resonate with you in a greater depth than ever before. I think it's perfectly normal to be swayed by what looks cool, badass, or what hits that nostalgic part of the brain. But it's also important to remember that that's just the hook. What matters is what you do after you bite. The games industry is healthier than ever, and by healthy, I actually mean that it makes way more money than ever. Visionary design or artistic integrity be damned. This is thanks to things like microtransactions, early access games that never leave early access, pre-order bonuses, etc., and of course, games that exude surface appeal, but rarely anything more than that. Most devs don't really care about pushing the boundary in the gameplay department, and there's nothing wrong with supporting these devs, I do. But what kinda grinds my gears is when people praise these games only focusing on what's superficial. Red Dead 2. Some people call it one of the best games ever made, and if we're talking purely from a non-gameplay perspective, it really is up there. The visuals in this game are just stunning.
18 naked cowboys in the showers at Ram Ranch. Big haired throbbing cocks wanting to be sucked. 18 naked cowboys wanted to be fucked. Cowboys in the showers at Ram.
It's so easy to see why people easily drink up the atmosphere, because the game really makes it very, very easy to do so. Rockstar is also known for paying Kojima-esque autistic attention to technology and details in things no one pays attention to. Bodies decompose according to in-game time, there's accurate real-time railway building, your hair and beard grows according to in-game time as well, shrinking and expanding horse balls and some horse poo too, and a countless list of other things you could fill a college rule notebook back to back with. And it's not just the visuals either, the story's good too. Despite being part of a murderous robbing gang, the main protagonist or protagonists are the most charismatic, likable cowboys north of Ram Ranch. Arthur Morgan's gruff southern drawl and his big old mountain man demeanor is so endearing that I have no doubt his character could single-handedly carry anyone through the game. Plus, he looks kinda like my dad, so I have an even softer spot for him than most, I think. But from a gameplay standpoint, the game is kinda ass. The combat system is just the same old cover-based shooting galleries you'll find in every single big-budget title in the last 2 generations, with little to no innovation in gameplay besides cosmetic ones. Snap to one point of cover, shoot a guy, wait for the others to stop shooting, then shoot the other guy, and with a few exceptions like fighting the odd wolf or bear, and some scripted stealth sequences, enemy types never vary or change their behavior, or force you to switch your playstyle up in any way. The mission design still sucks and hasn't improved from Rockstar's last games. Almost every mission pigeonholes you into doing one thing one specific way, and if you dare to deviate just a little from that, it's game over. Go to the objective, watch a cutscene, follow some person from point A to point B while you dialogue with them, get into a shootout or another scripted sequence that's super hard to fail, or do something else you've done 1,000 times before, then follow them back to point A and watch a cutscene again. This means from the beginning to the end of the game, which can take up to like 50 hours or something, you'll be doing the same old boring ass doo-doo you've done 1,000,000 times in every other popular Rockstar game. This isn't to say that there isn't innovation at all, because there is a tiny bit. There are new mechanics like weapon maintenance, health and stamina management. There are more opportunities to garner good boy or bad boy points, with the addition of the dialogue system and just more activities to do in general. As much as I want to like them though, These mechanics are basically meaningless, and they add almost nothing to the gameplay experience since they're either extremely forgiving, provide no meaningful gameplay consequences, or can easily be trivialized. Meter management requires consumable items which can be crafted, bought at a store, or found while exploring, but you can go the whole game without crafting anything since the stuff you buy at the store or find in buildings works just as good. And acquiring these items from stores are nothing more than a chore because you get so much money passively from doing missions, side missions, or other menial tasks. There is some nuance as some items damage certain health cores while healing others, but that can easily be bypassed by just using another item that heals the health core you just damaged. Weapon maintenance falls largely under the same boat, as it also requires consumable items or going to a store. But again, getting consumable items is super easy since you make so much money passively, and you can go the whole game without oiling up once, because all weapon deterioration amounts to is slightly lower damage, accuracy, and reload speed. You can still totally get by with slightly shittier weapons by just headshotting guys or shooting them more times. Weapon maintenance also becomes a double nothing burger with cheese, because by the midpoint in the game you'll have access to so many weapons to swap off your degraded weapons that degradation doesn't even matter. There's little trade-off or meaningful decision making with any of these mechanics here. You might argue that you shouldn't need to make stressful decisions since the experience is just about being a cool gunslinging cowboy, but if that's the case, why even add any of this at all? Why not scrap these poorly thought out systems in favor of a more focused and improved combat system, which it sorely needs? There's nothing wrong with liking Red Dead 2. I like it, believe me, I really do. I wouldn't have flipped RDR2, RDR1, or any of Rockstar's previous games for that matter if I thought they were irredeemable garbage. Red Dead 2 deserves praise for its beautiful visuals, great acting, realistic animations, solid story, and attention to detail in minor things. And it has gotten this praise. I've seen countless players online give the game 10 out of 10s. Even further, mainstream game journalism outlets have also given the game 10 out of 10s or other super high scores, and also praised the game deeply for its superficial aspects, but then only just barely touch upon the gameplay systems. They only focus on how beautiful the game looks and sounds and how good the story is, but they never mention anything under the surface, where you'll find that the game is very flawed. The edgy 13-year-old twisted psychopath in me says that these people don't like the taste of video game in their video game, like they're almost ashamed of playing one for whatever reason and would rather be watching a mature adult movie, but pretend that they're playing a video game because video games are fashionable nowadays. But the nicest guy you'll ever meet in me says that not all the people who unabashedly praise RDR2 and other games like it, without taking into account its flaws, are in the boat I just described. There's likely tons of gamers who flat out just don't know that Red Dead 2 is even flawed. They don't know that there are deeper games out there because they simply haven't played any of them, which is kind of a scary prospect. Then there's the question of whose job is it to expose people to better games? Certainly the onus should fall on mainstream game journalists whose articles or videos get 20 trillion times more views and engagement than the dumbass lower than average Joe like me. Shouldn't it be their responsibility to carefully research games and fairly critique their gameplay systems, and inform the public that there are other more complex games out there more deserving of your time? Even if there were some across-the-board replacement of movie-envying journalists with people that actually care about meaningful game design, most people might not even give two shits about deeper games if they don't have that nice, shiny surface appeal. I'm pretty sure people like Red Dead 2 precisely because it feels like a movie. Game conventions like Jeff Con are somewhat difficult for me to watch because people slobber over things that aren't gameplay related. A good chunk of game conventions still overtly put emphasis on how their lineup of games look rather than how they play. The initial RE9 reveal had no gameplay for the peasant home viewer like me, but of course people lost their shit. People whooped and hollered after seeing a melodramatic cutscene between two celebrity actors in Kojimbo's newest Strand-type game.
So much mystery.
And parts where people actually talk about the gameplay in their games are swept under the rug or saved for a less exposed and separate showcase later on. I think that some amount of responsibility falls on all stakeholders in the video games industry. It falls on the developers for creating something that appeals to certain people while also just making a good video game. It falls on the mainstream journalists and reviewers who should do their best to research and reference past games while also giving fair criticism and praise where it's deserved. And it also falls on the consumer like you and me to keep an open mind and try new things a little out of our comfort zone. Variety is the spice of life after all. If every game were a first-person or third-person shooter game, things would get very tiresome very quickly. And likewise, if every game ever released was a super gameplay-dense shmup, things would also get very tiresome very quickly. I can't help but wonder how many people might end up loving those deeper games if they just had a little nudge, something or someone to point them in that direction. There are plenty of such games out there which have the capacity to take you by storm. Then again, who am I, some random nobody on the internet, to say that there are games out there more worthy of your time? I'm not some god-tier analyst or industry veteran. I can't even 1cc a random shmup on hard mode. I'm just a dumbass who's played a ton of video games. And even I, some idiot on the internet, can see that there's something misguided in how the majority of mainstream audiences only stay above the surface of most games they consume. To be clear, again, there's nothing wrong with an abundance of story or cinematics. RE4 has a ton of them, and a bunch of QTEs on top of it, and it's one of my top 5 GOATs. But it has strong, kick-ass gameplay to back it up. And it's not even that Red Dead 2 is bad. I know I keep saying this, I'm beating a dead fucking horse here, but one more time, I do want to reiterate that I really do like the game. And plus, there are so many other games out there whose style is the substance, a la Naissance, Red Dead, and plenty of others, that are exemplary of games which lack mechanical complexity, but make up for it in other areas. Silent Hill 2 is also one of those games. It's highly regarded as one of the best horror games ever made, and one of the best games ever in general for that matter. You'd think that from its reputation, its gameplay would hold up very well to its rival, any classic Resident Evil game, but that just isn't the case. In fact, you could easily call the gameplay in Silent Hill 2 a more shitty, diluted, simplified version of the gameplay you'll find in the RE games. I wouldn't exactly call it shitty, but there is still some truth to this. Aside from one point where you gotta stash all your shit in the locker, you never have to worry about anything related to inventory management since you can stuff unlimited bullets, first aid kits, vials of smack, and Pepto-Bismol bottles in your pocket all at once. Speaking of which, you'll find a lot more heals and ammo than you would find in most classic RE titles, so there's less of an urge to conserve ammo and healing items. On top of that, healing items are more streamlined as they come in the form of small heal, medium heal, and big heal, and you never have to worry about combining consumables with anything else to combat poison. Nothing akin to ink ribbons exist. This means you can go around willy-nilly doing whatever, and there's no need to be that cautious or anything since you can save unlimited amounts of times. Combat is also very simple and easier than in Resident Evil. You can move a little bit while shooting, so there's no need to pay attention to spacing or creating too much distance between you and enemies, and there's no need for defensive items like knives or stun guns to break out of a grab. Level design, while kinda confusing at first, is more linear and less interwoven than Resident Evil, and there's no need to plan out the most efficient route to the objective while avoiding enemies since you won't be coming back to most areas. All of this combined sounds like it wouldn't make for a very good horror experience if you're not actually dealing with much mechanical tension, but that is so far from the case that it's actually kinda hard to believe. The art direction, sound effects, music, or lack of music in every instance of the game, in both cutscene or gameplay, are so masterfully executed that they more than make up for the lack of RE-style tension. Some rooms exist solely to fuck with you. The static from the radio is somehow both reliable and unreliable since enemies don't always appear nearby or are hidden by the semi-fixed camera angles. The enemies themselves are bizarre, their animations are erratic and unpredictable, their designs are uncanny or vaguely sexual, and perfectly reflect the deteriorating state of James' mind and the hellish nightmare that is Silent Hill. Every single pixel and soundbite of Silent Hill 2's decaying Americana works so perfectly to create an atmosphere that's unsettling, otherworldly, and familiar all at the same time. I doubt anyone who's ever had the pleasure of playing Silent Hill 2 will ever forget it. I remember as a kid playing through the prison level after the historical society part. This area isn't even that hard, the level design isn't even that confusing, the enemies aren't even that numerous, and the game gives you tons of supplies to help you out to top it off. Feel free to call me a pussy, but despite the game not even being that difficult, This level was so taxing and terrifying to me, I got so battered down by the constant incessant rituals and the hoof steps and the unsettling ass bang on a metal door track that I nearly shat my pants. I actually had to take a break for a couple days and come back to it more mentally prepared, which is something that I've never had to do in any Resident Evil game ever. And it's not just the frights and the spookies and the atmosphere that's better. The story in Silent Hill 2 alone blows everything Resident Evil has ever done in their core games out of the fucking water. James' conflict with his wife, internal struggle and strife with Pyramid Head, and his interactions with the few poor bastards who had the misfortune of being called into Silent Hill are also believable, uncomfortable, or tragic, which is a far cry from Resident Evil's lovable but over-the-top B-movie campiness. Naissance, Red Dead 2, and Silent Hill 2 are all examples which prove that games don't need to have mechanics to be great experiences, but they also highlight a simple truth. Games built on simpler mechanics often lack the long-term appeal or replayability that more mechanically complex games have. Despite how fucking fantastic Silent Hill 2 is, I've only truly played it once or twice as a kid, not counting the remake. And coming back to it now, years later, was more out of obligation to gather footage rather than to genuinely complete another playthrough again. During this one, I couldn't be bothered to finish the game because I already knew what was coming and got bored. I've already seen the twists and turns the story threw at me, so the impact doesn't hit nearly as hard as the first time. Because Silent Hill 2 lacks mechanical depth, the impact leans more so on narrative and other non-gameplay related things. Once that's been experienced, there's little left to engage with on repeat playthroughs. Depth is what gives games their staying power. What's evident of that statement is that in the time between my first playthrough of Silent Hill 2 and now, which is many years, I left Silent Hill 2 on my shelf to collect dust, while finding myself coming back to Resident Evil 1 through 4 countless times. It's because the RE games provide the mechanical nuance and difficulty to keep them feeling fresh, even after multiple runs. And the same thing happened to me with Red Dead 2 and Naissance. It's not that these games aren't enjoyable, they 10,000% are, but they don't pull me back the way deeper games do. Silent Hill 2, Red Dead, and all the others, they hit hard once and linger in the memory, but just not the backlog. Just because RDR2 and games like it are good for what they are, doesn't mean that we should ignore what they aren't. And what they aren't are particularly engaging video games. Their systems feel more like set dressing than actual tools for expression or mastery. Video games are at their best what's beneath the surface, not above. And if that makes me sound like an old man yelling at clouds, so be it. In the beginning of this video, I said that substance beats style. I still believe that, but I also think it's important to understand that style is part of the experience. It's what hooks people in, after all. I never would have gotten into a vast majority of games in my collection if I didn't think they looked cool. It's easy to scoff at surface appeal like it's some kind of dirty, manipulative trick, but the truth is that it works, and for good reason. We're visual, emotional creatures. Games that exude surface appeal can act as enticing invitation or entry points. Like with the 5-second Devil Blade cutscene I mentioned at the beginning, it was surface appeal that reached out and grabbed me by the throat, and because of that I ended up 1cc'ing 2 games and gaining a newfound respect for an entire genre I previously ignored. I even went out of my way to add more shmups to my library and can easily one day see myself 1cc'ing them too. On easy mode, that is. At the end of the day, I'm not saying don't play games like Red Dead, and no one in their right fucking minds would ever tell you don't play Silent Hill 2. All I'm saying is, don't stop there. Style and substance kinda go hand in hand. But while what's on the surface might make a strong first impression, it's substance that gives the player more reason to come back. Style is the invitation, substance is the reason you stay. One hooks the monkey, the other feeds the gamer.